Okay. Getting sentenced to prison as you would imagine, comes with a lot of expectations or feelings, acceptance, regret, shame, gratitude. I just returned from Boston. I don't look great. Just got off the plane, saw that Senator Menendez was sentenced to 11 years in prison. And it seems like a devastatingly long time, and it can be. The hardest part for him today, I can assure you, is this sense of regret and how poorly he prepared, which takes me back to my time in Boston. I'm going to do some filming about the sentencing hearings I experienced in Boston, including one with my good friend and excellent lawyer, Mark Worksman. Our sentence, I'm so tired, I'm having trouble speaking. At our sentencing hearing, the range was like 181 months in prison, very long time. But over the last 26 months, this defendant, despite going to trial as Menendez did everything possible to demonstrate that he was somehow different from the government's version of events. He was exceptional. Even the government acknowledged that over this time, he had been exceptional. And he went to trial, telling everyone you can still mitigate even if you go to trial and lose. Though if you've done it, it's easier to accept responsibility. You're going to get a shorter sentence. So our client got 120 months or 10 years in prison. It's not 181 months. They wanted to take him into custody. They did not, because the judge acknowledged the record that he had built. So rather than continued regret and shame and pain, it was, I am grateful. I only got 10 years, not 181 months because of this work, which really takes us to Menendez, which is a terrible fall. He had a very accomplished life, very incredibly successful to become a senator, worked hard for a very long period of time, regardless of how you feel about him. Yet these temptations and willingness to cross the line apparently was too much. Years ago, we know he was embroiled in a government investigation that went away, gets indicted again, along with his wife and others, for apparently being a foreign agent for Qatar and Egypt, gold bars, cash, generally all things bad, especially when you're in a position of power. So I'll get into what happens to him next and why he should frankly be grateful with 11 years. But here's probably what he's feeling and what most people tend to do when they see the United States of America versus your name. And it's part of the reason I know myriad people will claim to be innocent, and they may be, and still plead guilty because they want the fallout to be as nominal as possible. I filmed a YouTube short video last year in Los Angeles, and while I was filming it, I nearly tripped and fell, but I still posted it on one take. And I mentioned that I had an issue with his sentencing strategy, which included kind of blaming his wife. Okay. Original, unique. It's my wife's fault. She had the relationships. I don't really know what was happening. I'm too busy being a senator for the state of New Jersey. Interesting strategy here, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out, if you remember the wonderful film Dodgeball. So that wasn't a great strategy. What most people do if a husband and wife are indicted, here's the approach they take. Only one of us needs to go down here. Let's try to create a scenario where it's neither of us are going to prison, of course, but if someone's got to go, spouse, it's going to be me. I'm going to go down. Of course, to do that would require some sense of humility and acceptance of responsibility. I did it. I abused my power as a senator, but in so doing, I entrapped other people. It wasn't their fault. It was mine. And I suspect with as much as he paid his lawyers, which is a lot of Kaczynski, that he would have been able to negotiate a plea agreement that could have included him pleading guilty, probably going to trial, accepting responsibility, pleading. He wouldn't have gotten 11 years. Now, she may plead guilty too, but she might not get prison. It could be home arrest or a measurably shorter sentence. Instead, he's convicted of 11 years. She has major health issues, as I understand. The government would say, if you were so concerned about your health issues, you shouldn't have broken the law and engaged as a foreign agent against our country with Qatar and Egypt and taken gold bars and cash and stuffed them in your mattress. So they're not going to have a great deal of sympathy for her, primarily because of how she responded. Post-defense conduct is a really big deal. There are so many defendants, even those who plead guilty, who think they are doing great things. And here's what the government will say. I know because I heard it yesterday at a sentencing hearing I attended in Boston. They'll say, you're doing the requisite stuff. You're doing what's required. There's nothing exceptional about that. You want us to give you a shorter sentence because you're compliant and you have a job and you pled guilty? What's exceptional about that? Yet it's even worse if you go to trial. So now she's facing a trial in March, as I understand it. Odds are she gets convicted because most do. So he has the regret of 11 years, and now he has to endure the reality that his wife is going to get a very long sentence to have convicted. And it's not uncommon that people of power and privilege and opportunity, perhaps with sycophants, including lawyers who tell you what you want to hear, may go to trial. For example, We worked with Julie and Todd Chrisley in the post-sentencing stage, and I like them very much. I care for the family. I'm super close with Lindsay. I've done her podcast and vice versa. But it's clear that had Todd Chrisley taken a different path, in my opinion, he wouldn't have gotten 12 years and Julie wouldn't have gotten 7 years. The goal, if you can, is to try to take one for the team, come off as a martyr if you like, tell your family I'm only doing this for the family. But the goal for Menendez should have been, I cannot have my wife's wife and grandmother she cannot go to prison. Instead, they're both looking at very long federal prison sentences. He's already gotten one. Now, let's talk about perspective. You find perspective going to prison. I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's kind of crazy. I've been doing it for so long. When I hear 10 or 11 years, 10 years with our client yesterday and 11 years with Menendez, you think, it's not that long. That's insane, because when I got 18 months in prison, I thought it was a life sentence. I thought I was never coming home. You form a sense of perspective. Okay, 10 years, he's 71, still young enough, could probably get a little healthier, get a little fitter, lose some weight, has very, very long days with good time, maybe the drug program, don't know, haven't read the pre-sentence report. First Step Act and other benefits, if he's eligible, he could be home in 6 or 7 years. Maybe he builds a record that demonstrates why he's extraordinary and compelling and can be a candidate for an earlier release. And it's possible, even if you've gone to trial, as absurd as it sounds, because if you read like what Judge Stein said, they wanted 15 years in prison, had proven at trial the defendants engaged for years in a corruption and foreign influence scheme of stunning brazenness, breadth and duration, resulting in exceptionally grave abuses of power at the highest levels of the legislative branch of the government. I mean, it's not great, but still it can be overcome with good messaging, because what can influence an earlier release for Senator Menendez down the road, or any defendant, what have you done in the post-sentencing stage? What can he do now to become extraordinary and compelling? And it's possible, even if you've gone to trial. This is a story that Senator Menendez can learn from. Jerry Lundergan received a pardon from President Biden on his last day in office. Jerry Lundergan was convicted at trial, did not accept responsibility. He was convicted of illegally contributing to his daughter's Senate campaign. Yet when Jerry called me many years ago from Kentucky before he went to trial, he said, I think I'm innocent. Odds are I lose. I want to begin to prepare and mitigate and somehow show this judge that I'm not the person the U.S. attorney is portraying me to be. Come on out to Kentucky. Let's prepare. Let's mitigate. Let's plan. He's convicted. They asked for 63 months. He gets 21 months, immediately gets vested in our nonprofit that influences millions of people. And in the DOJ press release, justifying his pardon, it referenced our nonprofit and why he had earned this pardon, even though he went to trial. Menendez needs to begin to build a record on the insides that shows how he's going to be productive. He's not going to complain. He's going to contribute to this community of felons. Or he can sit around the TV room, the chow hall at a library, and claim that I'm the victim. I was set up. I read that he claimed because it's his Hispanic heritage, they're taking him down. He's not going to allow it. He can engage in that path if he likes, and there will be those that will let him engage in it. And kind of famous, I guess, to some. He's a celebrity, or he's a senator. I mean, a position of power. Some people will be enamored by that. They'll let him engage in that rhetoric. Or he can say, I don't like that I'm here. I'm going to appeal. I think I'm innocent, but I'm going to make the most of this experience. And in so doing, he can begin to build his way out of that prison and come home healthier, stronger, and better, and really set the tone for his family, who indeed suffers as much as him. This is a very tough day in that family. I talk about 10 or 11 years feeling like a long time, or not as long as it once was, as long as I've been doing this. He has to find perspective and some gratitude, because he knows, being a senator for a very long time and knowing this war on drugs, how many people go to prison for nonviolent drug crimes in the old days of 20, 30, 40 years. My partner did 26 years for a nonviolent drug crime. The sentence could have been longer. They asked for 15 years. So he should focus on the fact that had he gotten 15 years, which is what the government wanted, he would have gone to a low security prison. He'd have been fenced in. It could have been a harder environment for him, because he's around people who have been in prison longer. It's a different makeup of the person in prison. Now, because of 11 years and the immediate good time that he's going to receive, they're going to send him to a low security prison. No fences, no barbed wire. It's as close as you can possibly get to freedom. You can walk off at any time, and they're not going to stop you. So I hope he is focusing on that. It could have been 15. He got 11. I hope he's setting the tone for his family and managing their expectations. And this is what some people do, foolishly. They just don't manage expectations. It's coming out better than I had hoped, considering I was on a plane I shouldn't complain. I'm grateful, but I am wrecked, people. What happens when some people go to trial is they are delusional. They are in la la land. They convince people that these things that happen to other people are never going to come for them, right? So he's telling everyone, I'm going to prevail on appeal. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to be in prison at some point. They're going to yank me out of there because I'm going to win. The problem with that approach is he may go to prison and never fully settle in because he's expecting at any time, as strange as it may sound, that he's going to prevail. And when people believe that, here's what happens. If the appeal doesn't come through, like the reality sets in, like, holy good God, this is my life. I'm going to be here for a while. And they never adjusted in prison properly because they presumed at some point, this appeal is going to come through. And even with Julie and Todd Chrisley, Todd's appeal was denied. Julie won a portion of her appeal. She endured transit for months in that courthouse in Atlanta, and the judge resentenced her to the same number. I have many opinions and reasons on why the government did that. I'm going to discuss them at a later date. If any of you have done your research, you might be able to surmise why. But it was harder on both Julie and Todd. They know the reality of their prison term is in front of them, 12 and 7 years. That's most likely what's going to happen with Menendez. Now he has the uncertainty of how long will his wife receive. On 11 years, to some technicalities, he will get that 15% good time. I believe he'll be eligible for the First Step Act, though I want to confirm based on the conviction. If he is, that would be a year off of his sentence, a year in the halfway house. So you're talking a good, 6-7 years in a minimum security camp. It's enough time for him to be productive, find a way to contribute to that prison, and make the most of the experience. A few other things to cover as I wrap this up. He will be expected to work even at 71 unless he's not healthy enough, fit enough, or strong enough, right? At his age, he could work if he wants to. They could give him an opportunity not to work. If I were him, I'd find a way to contribute, even if it's emptying the trash or sweeping the floors 4 or 5 days a week. Showing that you can contribute to that prison shows humility. It shows deference. It just shows that you are willing to contribute. I would encourage him to understand his environment, right? When you've been a senator, that is a position of power. You have yes people around you, and there will be people who will be enamored by him. And it may be difficult for him to say no, or for him to recognize that a lot of things he's had access to in life, position, power, privilege, wealth, connections, influence, that goes by the wayside in prison. And he shouldn't expect that. And if things are offered to him both by staff and other prisoners because of his position, it's really in his interest to essentially say, I'm no different from anyone else. This is my Bureau of Prisons number. I'm serving an 11-year federal prison sentence. I don't expect any niceties or benefits because of who I am. I am no different from anyone else. And we've had many politicians in our community go to prison who have retained us. Senator Menendez has not, but if he did, I would remind him, this experience is harder on those that love and support you. And in order to thrive through this experience, you cannot give into or succumb to temptation, which is what so many prisoners do. They get into trouble, they go to a higher security prison, they go to the hole, they complain to staff, and in so doing, they make matters worse. So all eyes will be on him. And some prisoners fail to kind of, embrace that because they're used to getting everything they want right now. So I'd remind him his goal is to not make matters worse. And matters can be made worse even in a minimum security camp. I mean, it is like the wild, wild west. There will be hundreds of iPhones there. There will be prisoners doing inappropriate things with other prisoners and with staff. And some staff is totally disinterested from their life and yours, and they will allow these things to happen. So it's very easy to get comfortable and just feel as if, you own this environment. And just like that, you get caught and everything changes. It's a very difficult day for the former senator. I know he is dealing with a great sense of regret and shame and pain over how he responded to this indictment. If I were a betting man, and I'm not, but if I were, I did gamble at this casino in Boston. I didn't win a little bit. I didn't win. If I were a betting man, and if he could turn back time, he'd probably say, okay, I've gotten indicted, or I'm the target of an investigation. I want to take one for the team. I'm going to come off as the martyr. I'm going to come off as the guy saving our family. And even though I didn't do anything wrong, I'm going to say that I did and plead guilty because I need to keep my wife out of prison. I need to ensure that she's not standing for count. Now, they both are, it appears, for a very long time. His sentence is known. Hers is not, but it's coming. Thank you for joining this random live video on White Collar. I just got into town from Boston. Not presentable, not great, but when I see an opportunity to teach, I am going to take it. If you find value, please like and subscribe. I might have said that 3 times. Now I'm going to get back to emails I missed from Boston. Goodbye.